Kim Tae-ho rubbed his tired eyes and checked his phone again. It was past midnight, and the subway station looked different than usual. He had been working late at the office again, fixing computers and dealing with angry customers who blamed him for every technical problem in the world. His boss had kept him there until 11:30. Now he just wanted to go home and sleep. The fluorescent lights in the station buzzed overhead, casting strange shadows on the walls. Tae-ho walked toward what he thought was the usual platform, but something felt wrong. The tiles on the floor were too clean, too shiny. They reflected the lights in ways that made his eyes water. He had been taking this route home for 3 years. But tonight, everything looked unfamiliar. He stopped in front of a ticket machine that definitely had not been there yesterday. It was tall and silver, with a screen that glowed with soft blue light. The buttons were arranged in patterns he did not recognize, and strange symbols danced across the display. Tae-ho blinked hard, thinking maybe he was more tired than he realized. The machine made a soft humming sound, and suddenly the screen changed to show text in Korean. But it was mixed with other languages he could not identify. Some words looked almost familiar, like they were trying to be Korean, but got confused along the way. "Welcome, traveler," the screen said. "Select your destination from our premium routes." Tae-ho laughed despite his exhaustion. This had to be some kind of advertising stunt or virtual reality display. Maybe the city was testing new technology in the subway system. He had heard about companies doing strange marketing campaigns. To get attention, the list of destinations made him laugh even more. There was Proxima Station Experience, the closest star system. Below that was Andromeda Central Gateway to Distant Galaxies. At the bottom, in bright golden letters, was Universe's End, Premium Route Limited Time Offer. Universe's End, Tae-ho muttered to himself. Right, and I suppose they served dinner on the way there. He was so tired that everything seemed funny. His day had been filled with customers complaining about slow internet and broken printers. One woman had yelled at him for 20 minutes because her computer would not print in the exact shade of blue she wanted. Another man had insisted that his email problems were somehow connected to a government conspiracy. Looking at this ridiculous ticket machine, Tae-ho felt a familiar surge of sarcastic energy. If someone wanted to waste money on fake advertising, he might as well play along. He pulled out his transit card, the same one he used every day to ride the real subway. "Sure," he said out loud to the machine. "Take me to the Universe's End. I bet it has better customer service than my office." He tapped his card against the screen, expecting nothing to happen. Maybe the machine would flash an error message or ask him to pay some ridiculous amount of money. Instead, the screen lit up with green check marks and made a pleasant chiming sound. "Thank you for choosing Galactic Transit Authority," the screen announced. "Your premium journey to Universe's End will begin shortly. Please proceed to Platform 9. Tae-ho looked around the station. He had never seen a Platform 9 before, but there, where he was sure there had been a blank wall just moments ago, was an opening with a sign that clearly said Platform 9 in both Korean and those strange symbols. His rational mind told him this was all some elaborate joke or dream. Maybe he had fallen asleep at his desk and was still at the office, but his tired brain was curious enough to keep walking. The worst that could happen was waking up with his face on his keyboard again. The platform was unlike anything he had ever seen. The floor was made of some kind of crystal that seemed to glow from within. The walls curved upward and disappeared into darkness above his head. There were no other passengers waiting, which was unusual for any Seoul subway station. Even at this late hour, a soft sound made him turn around. Something was approaching along what looked like tracks, but they were not the metal rails he was used to seeing. Instead, streams of light ran along the ground, pulsing with different colors. The vehicle that came into view was not a subway car at all. It was a pod made of the same crystal material as the platform floor, was egg-shaped and just large enough for one person. The front part was transparent, and Tae-ho could see a comfortable-looking seat inside. The pod came to a stop right in front of him without making any noise. A door slid open with a whisper of air. Inside, soft music was playing, and the temperature felt perfect. The seat looked more comfortable than his bed at home. A gentle voice spoke from somewhere inside the pod. "Welcome aboard, Kim Tae-ho. Please take your seat for departure to Universe's End. Estimated travel time is 17 minutes. Taeho froze. The voice had used his real name. His transit card had his name on it, but subway machines never announce passenger names. This was getting too weird, even for a dream or advertising stunt. But he was so tired, and the seat looked so comfortable. His apartment was at least 40 minutes away on the normal subway, and he would have to stand the whole time. This pod, whatever it was, offered him a chance to sit down and rest. This is insane, he said to himself, but he stepped inside anyway. The door closed silently behind him. The seat adjusted itself to fit his body perfectly, and he felt more comfortable than he had all day. The pod began to move, and through the transparent front, he could see the platform sliding away. Then something impossible happened. The tunnel. A head began to open up, growing wider and taller. Stars appeared in the darkness above, not the electric lights of the subway system, but real stars. Bright points of light scattered across black space like diamonds on velvet. Taeho pressed his face against the transparent wall of the pod. Below him, getting smaller by the second, was the Earth. He could see the curve of the planet, the swirl of clouds, the lights of cities spreading across the continents. Seoul was a bright cluster of lights that quickly became just one dot among many. What is happening? He whispered. But his voice came out as barely a sound. The pod's gentle voice answered him, speaking in a mixture of Korean and something else that sounded like music mixed with mathematics. You are now employee of Galactic? Transit Authority Customer Service Department. Your interview responses showed excellent problem-solving skills and immunity to existential dread. Welcome to your new job, Kim Taeho. Taeho stared at the Earth shrinking behind him and realized that asking for better customer service than his office might have been the biggest mistake of his life. The crystal pod came to a stop with the gentlest bump Taeho had ever felt. Through the transparent walls, he saw a space station that stretched beyond his ability to see its edges. It was like looking at a city floating in space, with towers and bridges connecting massive spheres that glowed with soft light. Ships of all shapes and sizes moved between the structures like fish swimming through coral reefs. The pod door opened, and Taeho stepped onto a platform that felt solid despite being surrounded by the vacuum of space. The air smelled clean, with a hint of something like flowers mixed with electronics. Above his head, a dome of transparent material showed the stars and nebulae beyond, painting everything in colors he had never seen before. Kim Taeho, please report to Orientation Bay 7, announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere. At once, your supervisor is waiting. Taeho looked around for some kind of sign or direction, but before he could move, the floor beneath his feet began to glide forward like a moving walkway. He grabbed a handrail that appeared just as he needed it and let himself be carried through corridors filled with beings he could not have imagined in his worst dreams. A creature that looked like a walking tree with too many eyes nodded politely. As it passed, something that might have been made of liquid metal flowed along the ceiling, occasionally dripping down to reform into a more solid shape. Two beings that looked like oversized butterflies were having what sounded like an argument, their wings flashing different colors with each word. The moving floor delivered him to a circular room where several other confused-looking humans were. Standing around a desk, behind the desk, sat something that made Taeho blink hard several times to make sure he was seeing correctly. The supervisor had 8 tentacles instead of arms and legs, and its skin changed colors constantly like a mood ring having a seizure. When it noticed Taeho, the colors shifted to what might have been a welcoming shade of blue-green. Ah, another human, the being said in perfect Korean, though its voice sounded like it was coming through water. I am Grix, your department supervisor. Please join the others for orientation. Taeho walked over to the group of humans, all of whom looked as lost as he felt. A young woman with tired eyes and a rumpled business suit nodded at him. I'm Park Minji, she whispered. I used to work at a call center in Seoul. Been here 3 months now. Still have no idea what's going on, but the health benefits are amazing. Next to her stood a man who looked like he had not slept in days, wearing a gaming cafe uniform that had seen better times. Lee Dong-woo, he said quietly, former gaming cafe manager. 1 year here. Pro tip: don't ask too many questions about the physics of this place. It will give you headaches. Grix's tentacles moved in patterns that were probably meaningful too. Someone but looked like random dancing to Tejo. The supervisor's skin shifted to an official-looking shade of purple. "Welcome to the Galactic Transit Authority Customer Service Department," Grix announced. "You are here because our screening process identified you as suitable for handling customer complaints from across 17 different dimensions, 43 time streams, and over 10,000 species." Tejo raised his hand like he was still. "In school, excuse me, but I think there's been a mistake. I just wanted to go home from work." Grix's colors became what looked like amusement mixed with patience. "There are no mistakes in our hiring process. You selected the most challenging destination available and used sarcasm as your primary communication method. This demonstrates advanced problem-solving skills and immunity to existential dread." "I was being sarcastic because I was tired," Tejo protested. "Exactly," Grix replied, as if this proved the point perfectly. One of Grix's tentacles reached under the desk and pulled out a book that was roughly the size of a refrigerator. The cover read Customer Service Manual, Galactic Transit Authority, edition 847,000. "This contains all the procedures you will need to know," Grix explained. "It is written in universal service language which adapts to the readers emotionally. State: try not to read it when you are angry, as it becomes very difficult to understand." Minji leaned over to Tejo. "I've been trying to read that thing for 3 months. Yesterday it was in Korean, but I was frustrated. So today it's in some kind of poetry that rhymes but makes no sense." Donghu nodded. "Last week mine was written entirely in gaming terms. Apparently my mood was set to competitive player." Grix continued the orientation by explaining their duties. They would handle complaints from beings who traveled between stars, dimensions, and time periods using the Galactic Transit Authority's services. Problems could range from simple scheduling conflicts to paradoxes that threatened the fabric of reality itself. "Your first assignment," Grix said, colors shifting to businesslike orange, involves a hive mind species called the Collective of Harmony. They purchased 1 billion tickets for a group vacation to the peaceful meditation nebula. Unfortunately, when they arrived, they discovered the destination was actually a black hole scheduled for demolition. Tejo stared at the supervisor. "A black hole scheduled for what now?" "Demolition," Grix repeated patiently. The local Galactic Council determined it was a safety hazard. However, the demolition has been delayed by 3 million years due to environmental impact studies. The hive mind wants a full refund for all 1 billion tickets, plus compensation for emotional distress." "How can a black hole cause emotional distress to 1 billion beings?" Dongwu asked. Grix's tentacles wiggled in what might have been a shrug. "They claimed the gravitational forces disrupted their mental connection and gave them all headaches. They are threatening to file complaints with the Department of Cosmic Justice unless we resolve this immediately." Minji looked at Tejo with an expression that said, "Welcome to my nightmare. This is actually one of the easier cases." She whispered, "Last week I handled a complaint from someone who claimed they bought a round-trip ticket, but arrived at their destination before they left, so they want us to pay them for the time they lost by gaining time." Tejo sat down heavily in a chair that adjusted itself to fit him perfectly. His old job dealing with printer problems and slow internet suddenly seemed incredibly simple and peaceful. "What happens if we can't solve these complaints?" he asked. Grix's colors became a shade that definitely meant trouble. The last customer service department that failed to maintain satisfaction ratings above 90% was reassigned to sanitation duty in the Forbidden Dimension.
We have not heard from them since."
Tejo looked around at his fellow humans, all of whom were staring at the massive manual with expressions of doom. He realized that his biggest problem was no longer getting home to Seoul. His biggest problem was figuring out how to give customer service to beings that could destroy planets. When they got angry, the orientation continued for 6 more hours, covering topics like proper etiquette when dealing with time travelers, and how to apologize to a gas giant that feels ignored. By the end, Tejo's head was spinning with information that made no sense in any universe he understood. But one thought kept coming back to him in all his years of tech support. He had learned that most customer complaints were really about feeling heard and respected. Maybe, just maybe, that was true even for cosmic beings with impossible problems. He just hoped he would live long enough to find out. 2 weeks had passed since Taeho's accidental arrival at the space station, and he was beginning to understand why the Galactic Transit Authority had such problems with customer service. Every alien species he encountered approached complaints in the same predictable ways. The logical species, like the crystal beings from Dimension 7, would present their problems as mathematical equations with 17 different variables. They expected solutions that followed precise formulas, even when the problems involved things like my vacation to the past was ruined because I accidentally prevented my own birth. The hive mind species would arrive as groups of thousands, all thinking the exact same thoughts and speaking in perfect unison. They made decisions by consensus, which meant even choosing what to eat for lunch took 6 hours of collective discussion. The mystical species communicated through interpretive dance, color changes, or telepathic poetry that rhymed in languages Taeho had never heard of. They believed every problem was connected to cosmic harmony and spiritual balance. Even when someone just wanted their luggage back, what Taeho realized, sitting in his small office while watching Minji argue with a sentient gas cloud about delayed flights, was that humans were different. They were messy, illogical, and stubborn in ways that actually helped solve problems. His breakthrough came on a Tuesday morning when Grix's tentacles were flashing the urgent red color that meant catastrophic customer emergency. A species called the War Masters of Kelton had arrived at the station. They were not happy. The War Masters looked exactly like what Taeho would expect from their name. They were 8 feet tall, covered in armor that seemed to be part of their skin, and had 4 arms that ended in claws sharp enough to cut through metal. Their leader, who called himself Supreme Battle Commander Vex, had a voice that sounded like grinding machinery. Our luxury cruise to the peaceful gardens of Zephyr was delayed by 3 standard time units, Commander Vex announced, his claws leaving scratches in Grix's metal desk. This is an insult to our warrior honor. We demand satisfaction, or we will reduce the peaceful gardens to cosmic dust. Grix's colors went through what Taeho had learned was the alien equivalent of panic. The supervisor's tentacles moved frantically as he pulled up the proper procedures on his computer screen. According to Section 45,891 of the Diplomatic Complaint Resolution Manual, Grix began, we must first file a formal inquiry with the Department of Temporal Adjustments, then submit a request for mediation to the Council of Universal Harmony, then wait for approval from the Committee for Peaceful Conflict Resolution. How long will this take? Commander Vex interrupted, his armor beginning to glow with angry red heat. Only 6 to 8 standard months, Grix replied hopefully. Commander Vex's roar shook the entire station. 6 months. In 6 months, we will have conquered 17 solar systems out of boredom. The peaceful gardens will be a parking lot for our warships. That was when Taeho stood up. He had been watching this conversation from his desk, and something about it reminded him of dealing with angry customers at his old tech support job. People who were really angry usually just wanted to feel important and respected. Commander Vex, Taeho said, walking over to the desk. I understand your frustration. 3-hour delay is completely unacceptable for warriors of your reputation. Grix's colors shifted to confused purple. Minji and Dongwu stopped what they were doing to watch. Commander Vex turned his glowing red eyes toward Taeho. Finally, someone who understands the gravity of this situation, the War Master growled. Absolutely. Taeho agreed. A luxury cruise is no place for true warriors anyway. What you deserve is something much more fitting for your status. Tell me, have you ever heard of our warrior's journey experience? There was no such thing as a warrior's journey experience, but Taeho was making it up as he went along. He had learned from years of customer service that sometimes you had to reframe the problem instead of trying to solve it. What kind of journey? Commander Vex asked, his armor dimming slightly with curiosity. It's our premium adventure package, designed specifically for elite military leaders. Taeho explained, pulling up the original luxury cruise information on his computer. Instead of peaceful gardens, you visit the Survival Challenge Nebula. Instead of relaxing spa treatments, you get combat endurance tests. Instead of fine dining, you get warrior's feast rations that you have to hunt yourself. Minji caught on immediately. She started typing rapidly on her computer, changing all the descriptions in the cruise package. The luxury suites become command bunkers, she added. The swimming pools become tactical water training facilities. Dongwu joined in, his gaming experience helping him understand what would appeal to competitive people. And instead of entertainment shows, you get strategic battle simulations where you can test your skills against holographic enemies. Commander Vex's armor was now glowing with excited yellow instead of angry red. This sounds more appropriate. For warriors of our caliber, what is the cost difference? For elite customers like yourselves, Taeho said smoothly, we're offering it at the same price as your original booking. Think of it as our apology for not realizing immediately that you needed a more challenging experience. The War Master's forearms crossed in what Taeho hoped was a pleased gesture. Acceptable. We will take this warrior's journey experience. When do we depart? Your transportation leaves in 1 hour, Taeho replied, hoping the same luxury cruise. Ship could accommodate the changes. Your command bunker suites are already prepared. After, Commander Vex left, looking forward to his warriors' feast rations that would actually be gourmet food with dramatic names. Grix stared at Taeho with colors that shifted between amazement and confusion. How did you do that? The supervisor asked. The diplomatic manual clearly states that any complaint involving threats of planetary destruction must go through proper channels. Sometimes, Taeho explained, the customer doesn't really want what they're asking for. They want to feel respected and important. Commander Vex didn't want to destroy a planet. He wanted to feel like the cruise was worthy of his warrior status. Minji nodded enthusiastically. It's like when customers call tech support angry about their computer being slow. Half the time, they're not really angry about the computer. They're angry about feeling stupid because they can't figure it out themselves. If you make them feel smart while fixing the problem, they leave happy. Over the following days, the three humans began applying this approach to other seemingly impossible complaints. When a telepathic species complained that their vacation, thoughts were being interrupted by other passengers' minds. Minji didn't try to explain the physics of telepathic interference. Instead, she offered them premium mental privacy suites with advanced thought-shielding technology, which were just regular rooms with white noise machines. When a time-traveling family arrived 3 days late for their own reservation and demanded compensation for the time they lost, Dongwu treated it like a puzzle in a video game. He offered them bonus time credits that they could use on future trips, making them feel like they had won something instead of lost something. The success rate of their department began to climb. Other customer service representatives started asking the humans for advice. Even species that had never worked together before began copying human methods. But what the humans didn't realize was that their success was being noticed by much more powerful beings. Deep in the administrative heart of the galactic government, ancient entities who had maintained universal order for millions of years were beginning to see the humans as a problem that needed to be solved. The Cosmic Efficiency Board had spent eons perfecting the art of bureaucratic precision. Every procedure had been tested across thousands of civilizations. Every rule existed for important reasons that maintained stability across dimensions, and now, 3 humans with no proper training were ignoring all of those carefully crafted procedures and somehow getting better results than anyone else in galactic history. This could not be allowed to continue. The day started normally for Taeho, and his new job meant dealing with complaints that would have been impossible on Earth. He had just finished helping a family of living crystals, who were upset that their beach vacation destination had sand instead of rocks, when Grix's tentacles began flashing colors he had never seen before. Emergency, Grix announced, his voice shaking like an earthquake. Code Impossible has arrived at Customer Service Bay 1. All departments are requested to observe from a safe distance. Taeho looked at Minji and Dongwu, who both looked as confused as he felt. In their month of working together, they had never seen Grix this worried. Even when the War Masters had threatened to destroy planets, the supervisor had only shown normal panic colors. What's Code Impossible? Minji asked. Grix's skin shifted through what looked like every color at once. The most famous unsolvable customer complaint in galactic history? It has been passed between customer service departments for over 50,000 years. Entire civilizations have given up customer service careers because of this case. Through the transparent walls of their office, Tejo could see beings from all over the station gathering to watch. Some were pointing, others were backing away, and a few were actually running in the opposite direction. What makes it so impossible? Dongwu asked, before Grix could answer. Something appeared in Customer Service Bay 1 that made Tejo's brain hurt to look at. The customer was there and not there at the same time. They seemed to be sitting in the chair while also standing. Beside it, when Tejo tried to focus on them, they looked like a normal humanoid figure, but when he looked away and back again, they appeared completely different. The customer, Grix explained in a whisper, bought a round-trip ticket to the universe's end 50,000 years ago. They claim they took the trip but never returned from it. However, they are filing this complaint both from their starting location and from the universe's end at the same time. Tejo stared at the impossible customer. How can someone be in 2 places at once? That is exactly the problem, Grix replied. According to their complaint, they are simultaneously satisfied with their trip to the universe's end and dissatisfied with never returning from it. They exist in a quantum state of both having taken the journey and not having taken it.
Ow, Minji.
Rubbed her forehead. So they want a refund for a trip they both did and didn't take? Precisely. Every customer service department that has tried to solve this case has failed. The logical thinking beings of Centauri spent 300 years creating mathematical proofs that the situation was impossible. The mystical order of universal harmony meditated on it for 1,000 years and declared it a cosmic riddle with no answer. Through the window, Tejo could see other customer service representatives from different species gathering around the impossible customer. Each one would approach the desk, speak for a few minutes, then back away looking defeated. Some of them actually started crying, which was disturbing when the beings doing the crying had tentacles or were made of living light. What happens if we can't solve it? Dongwu asked. Grix's colors became the deep black of absolute doom. The customer has been patiently waiting for 50,000 years. They have stated that if this complaint is not resolved soon, they will file a formal dissatisfaction report with the Universal Council of Everything. Such a report could result in the shutdown of all customer service operations across 17 dimensions. Tejo watched as a delegation of the most advanced beings in the galaxy approached the impossible customer. They carried devices that looked like they could measure things that didn't exist and calculate the math of impossibility itself. After 20 minutes of scanning, measuring, and consulting with each other in languages that sounded like music mixed with mathematics, they gave up and walked away. Has anyone ever tried just talking to them? Tejo asked. Grix's tentacles stopped moving entirely. Talking to them about what? The situation violates every known law of physics, logic, and customer service. What could anyone possibly say? Tejo was already walking toward Customer Service Bay 1. Behind him, he heard Minji and Dongwu following, despite Grix's colors flashing in patterns that clearly meant terrible idea. Please don't do this. The crowd of aliens parted as the 3 humans approached the impossible customer. Up close, the effect was even more disturbing. The customer looked like they were having a conversation with someone, but they were both sides of the conversation. When they spoke as the person who had taken the trip, they sounded happy and satisfied. When they spoke as the person who had never returned, they sounded frustrated and disappointed. Tejo pulled up a chair across from the customer, which seemed to surprise everyone watching. Most beings had been trying to solve the problem from a distance, using computers and scientific instruments. Hello, Tejo said simply. I'm Tejo from customer service. I understand you have a complaint about your trip to the universe's end. Impossible customer turned their attention to him, and for a moment they seemed to become slightly more solid and present. Yes, I do. I am both completely satisfied with my journey and completely dissatisfied with never returning from it. I have been waiting 50,000 years for someone to resolve this. That's a long time to wait, Tejo replied. Before we try to fix the problem, can I ask you something? What would make you happy? The question seemed to shock everyone watching. In 50,000 years of trying to solve this complaint, apparently no one had ever asked the customer what they actually wanted. The impossible customer paused, their quantum state flickering like a bad television signal. I know one has ever asked me that before. Well, I'm asking now, Tejo said. Forget about the physics of the situation. Forget about the rules and regulations. If I could give you anything right now, what would make you feel like this complaint was resolved? The customer began to stabilize, becoming more solid and present than they had been in millennia, I suppose. I would like to understand why I exist in both states. I have been so focused on the complaint that I never stopped to think about what I actually wanted. Minji leaned forward. Maybe the trip changed you in ways you didn't expect. Yeah. Maybe being able to exist in two places at once isn't a problem. To be solved, but something unique about who you are now. The customer's form became even more stable. You mean, instead of seeing this as a failure of customer service, I could see it as an upgrade? Dongwu nodded. In gaming, we call that a special ability. Most people can only exist in one place at a time. You can experience everything from multiple perspectives simultaneously. That's actually pretty amazing. For the first time in 50,000 years, the impossible customer smiled. Both versions of them smiled at the same time. You know, I have been able to see things that no other being in the universe has ever seen. I have experienced the universe's end while also experiencing everywhere else. I have been treating it as a problem when it might actually be a gift. The customer stood up, and as they did, their quantum state began to settle into something that looked almost normal, though they still flickered slightly at the edges. I would like to withdraw my complaint, they announced. Instead, I would like to file a compliment. Your customer service has helped me understand that sometimes what seems like a problem is actually the best thing that could have happened. The silence that followed was so complete that Tejo could hear his own heartbeat. Then, slowly, the assembled crowd of aliens began to make sounds that he hoped were applause. Though some of it sounded more like controlled explosions, the impossible customer walked over to Tejo and shook his hand. Their touch felt like electricity, mixed with starlight. Thank you for being the first person in 50,000 years to ask me what I wanted instead of trying to fix what you thought was wrong. As the customer left, fading away into their quantum state of existing everywhere and nowhere, Grix approached the three humans. His colors were shifting through patterns that Tejo had never seen before. What you just did, Grix said slowly, is being recorded as the greatest achievement in customer service history. The impossible case has been resolved. You'll receive the Cosmic Medal of Service Excellence, the highest honor in the galaxy. But even as Tejo felt proud of what they had accomplished, he noticed something troubling. In the crowd of celebrating, aliens, a group of beings in dark robes, were watching them with expressions that did not look friendly at all. The impossible customer had been solved. But Tejo had a feeling that their biggest problems were just beginning. The morning after solving the impossible customer case, Tejo arrived at work to find his office surrounded by aliens holding what looked like requests written on every kind of material imaginable. Some were carved into metal plates, others were written on what appeared to be living plants that changed color as he read them. And one seemed to be made entirely of crystallized light. What is all this? He asked Grix, whose tentacles were flashing colors that meant either excitement or complete panic. Consultation requests, Grix explained, waving several tentacles at the growing crowd. Every department in the Galactic Transit Authority wants human advice. Word has spread about your methods, and suddenly everyone believes humans are the solution to their bureaucratic problems. Minji pushed through the crowd, carrying an armload of requests that were literally glowing with urgency. The Department of Temporal Paradoxes wants our help, she announced. They have a backlog of 12,000 cases where people have become their own grandfathers, and their current resolution time is 400 years per case. Dongwu appeared from behind a group of floating jellyfish-like beings, holding a request that seemed to be written in 3 dimensions. The interdimensional postal service needs us too. They have mail that keeps delivering itself before it gets sent, and packages that arrive at the wrong addresses in the right universes. Over the following weeks, the 3 humans found themselves consulting for departments they had never known existed. The Department of Universal Complaints had problems with customers who filed complaints about complaints they hadn't filed yet. The Office of Cosmic Scheduling was dealing with appointments that scheduled themselves and meetings that happened in the wrong century. What amazed Tejo was how often the solutions were embarrassingly simple. When the Department of Temporal Paradoxes showed him a case where someone had traveled back in time and accidentally prevented their own birth, creating a logical impossibility, he simply suggested they file the person as existing in a temporary existence pending resolution status. But that's not logically consistent, protested the department head, being made of living mathematics who spoke in equations. Logic isn't always the most important thing, Tejo replied. Sometimes people just need to feel like someone is taking their problems seriously while they figure things out themselves.
Al, the mathematical being,
calculated this statement for several minutes, then announced it was irrationally brilliant and implemented it immediately. The backlog of grandfather paradox cases dropped from 400 years to 6 months. Minji had similar success with the interdimensional postal service. Instead of trying to fix the physics of mail that delivered itself, she created a pre-delivery confirmation system where customers could confirm they wanted to receive mail before it was sent to them. But what about the mail that arrives before it's sent? Asked the postal supervisor, whose body appeared to be made of envelopes that constantly reshuffled themselves. We'll call that premium express service, Minji explained. Some customers might actually prefer getting their mail before they need it. The postal supervisor considered this for exactly 3 seconds, then declared it the most innovative postal policy in galactic history. Dongwu revolutionized the Office of Cosmic Scheduling by treating the entire system like a video game. He created achievement levels for bureaucrats who process paperwork efficiently, point systems for solving difficult cases, and leaderboards that showed which departments were performing best. Within a month, beings who had spent centuries doing the minimum required work were staying late to earn bureaucratic excellence points and competing to see who could solve the most unusual cases. The success of the human approach spread throughout the galactic government like wildfire. Departments that had been separated by species barriers for millions of years began working together, sharing the human techniques of asking what people actually want and ignoring rules when they don't make sense. But their revolution did not go unnoticed by everyone deep in the core of the galactic administrative complex. In a chamber that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously, the Cosmic Efficiency Board was holding an emergency meeting. The board consisted of 12 beings who had transcended physical form eons ago and now existed as pure bureaucratic perfection. The humans are contaminating our systems, announced the first administrator, whose voice sounded like filing cabinets closing in perfect rhythm. Their methods violate every principle of orderly administration that we have established over millions of years. They are achieving results, observed the third administrator, whose form was a constantly shifting pattern of forms and regulations. Customer satisfaction is at the highest levels in galactic history. Results achieved through chaos are not acceptable results, the first administrator replied. Order, procedure, and proper channels exist for reasons. The humans ignore all of these foundations of civilized governance. The seventh administrator, who specialized in enforcement protocols, materialized a document that hurt to look at directly. I have prepared procedure 99,999, elimination of chaos variables. We can terminate the human employment contracts and return them to their home planet immediately. Excellent, the first administrator decided. The contamination will be removed and proper order will be restored. Initiate procedure 99,999. But when the Cosmic Efficiency Board tried to implement their elimination procedure, they discovered something that had never happened in their millions of years of existence. The procedure wouldn't work. The galactic computer systems, which had been running smoothly since the humans arrived, immediately began generating error messages when the board tried to remove them. Departments that had been cooperating started arguing again. Customer satisfaction ratings began dropping so fast that emergency alarms started sounding throughout the station. The humans have become integral to system operations, the third administrator reported, sounding disturbed. Removing them now would cause cascade failures across 17 dimensions. How is this possible? The first administrator demanded. No single department should be able to affect the entire galactic bureaucracy. They have taught other beings to think like humans, the fifth administrator explained. The contamination has spread beyond our ability to contain it. Beings throughout the government are now approaching problems with human methods. The Cosmic Efficiency Board faced something they had never encountered before. A bureaucratic problem they could not solve through proper procedures. The humans had become so essential to galactic operations that firing them would destroy the very system the board existed to protect. There is only one solution, the first administrator announced grimly. We must file a formal complaint about the humans with the Department of Customer Service. But the humans run the Department of Customer Service, the seventh administrator pointed out. Exactly, the first administrator replied. They'll be required to handle a complaint about themselves. This will create a logical paradox that should neutralize their chaotic influence. What the Cosmic Efficiency Board did not understand was that humans had been dealing with logical paradoxes their entire lives. Every day on Earth, people handled contradictory demands, impossible schedules, and situations that made no sense but somehow worked anyway. The board was about to learn that. Bureaucratic perfection was no match for human stubbornness and the ability to find solutions that technically shouldn't work but somehow did anyway. As Taeho, Kam, Mingji, and Dongwu continued their work helping departments across the galaxy. They had no idea that their biggest challenge was approaching. They were about to face the ultimate test of human customer service, handling a complaint filed by the most powerful bureaucrats in the universe about their own existence. And somehow, they would have to find a way to solve it without destroying everything they had built. Taeho was helping a family of sentient clouds resolve their complaint about solid food on their space cruise when the most terrifying customers he had ever seen walked into the customer service department. 12 beings in dark robes floated. Rather than walked, and looking at them directly made his eyes water. Even Grix's tentacles stopped moving entirely when he saw them. "We are the Cosmic Efficiency Board," announced their leader, in a voice that sounded like the universe itself. "Filing paperwork. We wish to file a formal complaint about the customer service provided by this department." The entire space station seemed to grow quieter. Through the transparent walls, Taeho could see aliens throughout the complex, stopping their work to stare. Some were backing away. Others were actually fleeing to different levels of the station. "What is the nature of your complaint?" Taeho asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "You," the first administrator replied, pointing a finger that seemed to be made of pure bureaucracy at Taeho, "and your associates have contaminated our perfect administrative system with chaos, illogic, and disregard for proper procedures. We demand your immediate termination and removal from this facility." Minji and Dongwu came over to stand beside Taeho. All three humans looked at the most powerful bureaucrats in the universe and realized they were about to handle the strangest customer service call of their lives. "I understand your frustration," Taeho said, pulling out the standard complaint form. "Let me take down the details of your complaint so we can resolve this properly." The Cosmic Efficiency Board seemed surprised that he was treating them like regular customers. The third administrator stepped forward. "You cannot resolve a complaint about yourselves. This creates a logical paradox that violates fundamental administrative principles." "Actually," Dongwu said, "we handle self-referential complaints all the time. Last week, someone filed a complaint that their complaint wasn't being handled fast enough. So they filed a complaint about their complaint." "How did you resolve that?" asked the fifth administrator, sounding curious despite himself. "We processed both complaints at the same time," Minji explained. "The customer was happy because they felt heard, and we were happy because we got too close two cases at once." Taeho finished filling out the complaint form. "Now, according to our procedures, I need to understand what outcome would make you satisfied. What exactly do you want us to do?" The first administrator's robes rippled with what might have been confusion. "We want you to stop ignoring proper procedures and return to the established methods of bureaucratic administration." "Okay, Taeho," said, making notes. "And what specific procedures are we ignoring that concern you the most?" For the next hour, the Cosmic Efficiency Board listed every rule, regulation, procedure that the humans had bypassed or modified. The list was incredibly long and included violations like asking customers what they want instead of following the 50,000-step diagnostic process, and solving problems in minutes instead of the required minimum of 6 months. "I see the problem," Tejo said when they finished. "You're absolutely right that we haven't been following proper procedures. That's a valid complaint." The Cosmic Efficiency Board seemed pleased that he was agreeing with them. "However," Tejo continued, "I need to point out that customer satisfaction has increased by 847% since we started using our methods. Complaint resolution time has decreased from an average of 2 years to an average of 15 minutes. And interdepartmental cooperation is at the highest level in galactic history. Those results are irrelevant," the 7th administrator declared. "Proper procedure is more important than results." But Minji said gently, "Isn't the purpose of procedures to get good results? If we're getting better results with different methods, maybe the procedures need to be updated?" The Cosmic Efficiency Board went silent for several minutes, apparently processing this concept. Finally, the first administrator spoke. "Procedures exist to maintain order. Without proper procedures, there is chaos." "I understand that concern," Tejo replied. "What if we could maintain order while also getting better results? What if there was a way to update the procedures to include the methods that work best?" "That would require changing procedures that have been in place for millions of years," the 3rd administrator protested.
Right.
Dongwu said. "And that's exactly the kind of major procedural update that would need approval from the highest administrative authority in the galaxy, which is you." The Cosmic Efficiency Board exchanged glances that somehow managed to be visible despite their lack of faces. "You are suggesting," the 5th administrator said slowly, "that we approve our own complaint by authorizing the very changes we are complaining about?" "Exactly," Tejo said. "We have the authority to update galactic procedures to officially include human customer service methods. So that way we wouldn't be violating procedures anymore. We'd be following the new, improved procedures that you created." The silence that followed was so complete that Tejo could hear stars being born in distant galaxies. "This is the first administrator finally announced. The most bureaucratically elegant solution we have ever encountered. We simultaneously resolve our complaint, maintain our authority, and improve system efficiency," plus Minji added. "You get credit for creating the most successful customer service reform in galactic history." The Cosmic Efficiency Board huddled together for what looked like the most intense administrative discussion in the history of the universe. When they separated, the first administrator approached Tejo with something that might have been a smile. "We withdraw our complaint," he announced. "Instead, we are promoting you 2 directors of Galactic Customer Relations, with full authority to implement human customer service methods throughout the universal bureaucracy." "What does that mean exactly?" Tejo asked. "It means," the 3rd administrator explained, "that you now have the power to solve problems using whatever methods work best, even if those methods seem completely illogical to everyone else." 6 months later, Tejo found himself back in Seoul. But his commute had changed dramatically. Every morning, he took the regular subway to the special terminal that existed in a space between dimensions. From there, the crystal pod carried him to the Galactic Customer Service headquarters, where he spent his days helping beings from across the universe with problems that ranged from simple scheduling conflicts to paradoxes that threatened reality itself. The job was still challenging, but now he had an entire department of beings from different species who had learned to approach problems with human creativity and empathy. Customer satisfaction was at record levels, and complaints were being resolved faster than ever before. The best part, though, was when he occasionally got to help confused aliens who found themselves lost in Earth's subway system. Just last week, a family of crystalline beings had accidentally taken the wrong transport and ended up in downtown Seoul instead of downtown Andromeda. Tejo had personally escorted them back to the interdimensional terminal, listening patiently as they explained their confusion about human transportation systems. When they thanked him for his help, he realized something that made him smile. Good customer service, whether for humans or cosmic entities, really was just about listening to people, understanding what they needed, and doing whatever it took to help them feel heard and respected. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, that simple approach could change the entire universe. As he watched the crystalline family disappear into their transport pod, heading home with a story about the helpful human who had guided them through an alien world, Tejo reflected on how much his life had changed since that tired night when he had sarcastically selected Universe's End on a mysterious ticket machine. He had thought he was buying a ticket to nowhere. Instead, he had bought a ticket to everywhere and learned that the universe's best customer service came from the most human thing of all, simply caring about other people, no matter how different they might be.